In 1983, Raven released their album All for One, and my friend John and I are going to talk about it on this episode of Records with Ray. Well, here I am, where I grew up, in Wilburton number 2, PA, with my good friend John. We've been friends since, God, the early 80s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you lived, you originally are from like the Lehigh Valley.
Originally from Philadelphia,
From Philly, okay.
but then I lived in Easton, and then I moved up here
Yeah.
later on.
And then you moved in with your grandfather, who lived right next door to my grandfather.
Yep.
And so, like, we immediately became friends and been friends ever since. Star Wars was
Yep.
the common ground. We got into, like, video games together. I remember you.
Atari 2600.
And then we got into music.
Yep. That became our real common denominator.
My first stuff that I got into, like, the first tape that I bought was Men at Work Cargo.
Yep.
And then it was like Duran Duran, Adam, like all this like new wave stuff. But I remember Photograph. What was the album the Photograph was on from Def Leppard? Pyromania.
Pyromania.
And I remember you got that. And then I think I got it shortly after. It was the first hard rock album that I got into. And I remember that was a big deal because like, oh, this is tough. This is like hard music.
This is rebellious stuff.
Yeah. Which got us into metal. And I remember the only metal bands that I was into, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for you, was like Judas Priest, Maiden, Iron Maiden. Maybe,
Wasn't a Maiden guy.
Yeah, I was, but you were more into Priest, were you? Or Accept? Were you in those?
Priest, a little bit of Accept.
Grim Reaper.
Grim Reaper. What was that song? The Guillotine? From Pile Driver? Remember Pile Driver?
That was incredible. But most of the metal that I knew of was what you saw on MTV.
Yes.
And then, I'll never forget this. Where did you go to get Raven's All for One?
I bought it at the Palmer Park Mall.
Okay.
And I can tell you, I'm almost 100,000% sure.
Yeah.
At the time, there's this guy, his name's Kenny Moyer.
Yeah.
He's from Easton.
Yeah.
Pretty much an Eddie Van Halen clone on guitar.
Yeah.
Always looked up to the guy, always a super cool dude. Still a cool dude.
Yeah.
We actually made contact with each other again recently after being out of touch. But
Yeah.
he's the one who turned me on to Raven.
Yeah.
All for One.
Yeah. I remember you bought that tape, and I immediately loved it. Well, because it's metal. It's heavy metal, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Or would it be considered thrash?
It's
hard to say because they weren't really fast.
It was heavy metal.
It was just heavy metal. I guess technically, I mean, I've like looked into it, and supposedly they were part of the new wave of British heavy metal, but I'm not exactly sure. But I remember like all this music was way more energetic, way more heavy than Priest or Maiden like combined.
For three guys.
For three guys, they're from Scotland, right?
I think they're from Scotland.
Yeah, and it kind of changed everything for me. And I'm sure for you, because now this opened up a whole other world of like different type of music that you didn't see on MTV.
Nope. MTV was still watered down at that point.
Oh God, yeah. And I remember like the drummer,
in the hockey gear.
Rob Wacko Hunter. And I remember like in the back of it's like the dude's wearing like a hockey mask. Not the Jason mask, but he's wearing like the one with the cage.
Yep.
And he's wearing like, and they're all wearing like protective
Pads.
gear. And I just assumed that like every metal band has a guy that wears a hockey mask in it.
At that point, what did we know?
Yeah.
We were what, 15, 16?
Well, if it came out in 1983, there's nothing to say that you got it in 8. That could have been either 83 or 84. But I'm guessing probably one of those ages.
84 is probably when I stumbled onto it.
So I'd have been 13, so you
I
would have been
15.
15. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of changed everything for me. Because I remember, well, how do we find more of this music? And I remember you said, well, you'd go to the record store, right?
Yep.
And you just look, and you'd be like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I'd look at the back of the albums. Look at how cool the people look. The bass player, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I guess because that was probably when I was transitioning into being a bass player.
Yeah.
But that's not, everybody picked their music that way. If the album didn't look cool, you didn't buy it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is obviously, this was before the internet.
Yeah, way before the internet.
But there was no way of hearing anything. I mean, obviously, you can go online now, and you could go on YouTube, and like anything you want to hear, you can. There's a lot of record stores you can go in. You can actually like listen to. They'll have like headphones or something like that. But back then, you were literally going on nothing.
Yeah, but I went in a different direction from you.
What's that?
The pen pal thing.
Yeah, talk about that.
Hip Parade, Circus Magazine. I think any of those are around anymore. I mean, print is like a dead thing. But
yeah.
They used to have listings in there. Hey, write to me, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of tape swapping with the West Coast. I found out about a lot of bands before they were even thought of on the East Coast.
Crazy.
And don't forget, we're from the coal region, so everything's 5 years behind the times here.
Oh my God! Yeah. Well, except for you, except for you, because you single-handedly turned me on to like this type of metal. Well, I called it, I always called it underground metal.
Yep. Well, it was. A lot of it was underground.
Yeah.
You couldn't turn on the radio and hear it.
No, not at all. Well,
88.9. Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah, there was 88.9 was a college radio station.
Yeah, it's still going.
It was called the Heavy Metal Import Hour.
Okay.
And it was on Sundays. And it was this awesome program where like for like an hour or two they would play like all this underground metal.
That's how I found out about Cliff Burton dying from Metallica.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We were listening to that when I guess the bus toppled over and he died.
Yeah, it was. I think I was hanging out with you and you told me or something like that. But that, what can I say? Raven was the first band to really take things to the next level for me. And then I actually got to see them play finally. They played out in Seattle.
About that, yeah.
They played in Seattle about 2 years ago. And like, yeah, they're a little bit older now.
A little bit. They got to be up there.
Yeah, they're big beer guts and stuff like that. But they were still crazy, though. I mean, they were still nuts. And Rob Wacko Hunter wasn't in the band.
I was going to say, is it still the original lineup?
It's just the two brothers.
Okay.
But there was nothing like that music. Like athletic rock. All for One. Run Silent, Run Deep. And I just assumed like, oh, all these bands have songs called athletic rock and stuff like that. I think that's what they called themselves, was athletic rock, because they all wore like protective clothing and stuff like that.
Yeah. I can't imagine Rob still drumming though. For some reason, I picture him in a wheelchair somewhere.
Yeah, probably.